Be honest, you're shaking in your boots over there, knowing that Russell Wilson is, it looks like he's in line to get the start for the Steelers.
You know what's funny? I tweeted out when they traded for Adams, I was like, okay, same old, whatever. We expected this to happen, probably a day too late. When that was announced that that the Steelers were starting Russell Wilson, I put out that GIF, the meme. Just when I thought I was out, they find a way to pull me back in. Now the Jets are pulling me back in because Russell Wilson. Why would they make this move? I mean, you do the Steelers content here. I have no idea why. Like, why?
Yeah, let's start with Russ and we can get into the Adams trade. I don't get it either. And Justin Fields, 25 years old, has this team off to a 4-2 start. The passing yards, the passing totals aren't there. But the most dynamic part of the Steelers offense this season has been Justin Fields' mobility, especially considering injuries along the offensive line. I can get into that as well. But the most dynamic part of the Steelers offense this season has been Justin Fields and his legs. And you put Russ in year 13, shaking off rust in his first start for the Steelers in front of a banged up offensive line. I really don't know what to expect. I expected him to play at some point this season. It looks like he's going to be the starter come Sunday night, though.
Yeah, maybe the Steelers. Look, Tomlin, I respect him more than any coach in the league, or as much as any coach in the league. I used to work down with the Baltimore Ravens, and so I worked on their radio network. We saw Mike Tomlin twice a year, right? And so I've been around him a bit, not much, probably not as much as someone who is a Steelers content creator, but still, like, I respect the hell out of that guy as far as any head coach in the league. I think maybe he looks at this as a soft landing spot. Like, he would know best, right? Does he think that, hey, that Jets front can't get any pressure? They saw Michael Clemens try and contain the edge against Josh Allen and fail multiple times on Monday Night Football. And they're like, hey, you know what? This is actually a great spot to start Russell Wilson. Let's figure this out. The Jets have 2 injured corners right now with Michael Carter and DJ Reed. I don't know.
Let me go to the line really quickly. We'll get into Russ. Ryan McCollum, who's your third string center, is due to start for the Steelers because the rookie Zach Frazier, who's playing really well, out week to week with an ankle injury, he was starting because Nate Herbig's done for the year with the shoulder injury. Your right guard position, James Daniels, done for the year with an Achilles. Troy Fautanu, who's your first-round pick at the tackle position, was in line to be a starter. He's done for the season with a knee injury. You had several injuries along that offensive front. Isaiah Seumalo's finally back from a pectoral injury at left guard. Can Russ keep this offense on the field? And you might not have the points, you might not have the passing totals, but what the Steelers have done in, Bleav it's 5 of their 6 games, is win time of possession. The Steelers are 5th in the NFL entering this game in average time of possession. You say, Mark, why is that important? It helps keep what has at times been a dominant defense off of the field. If you can keep your defense off the field and your offense on it, most of the salary cap the Steelers have allocated is to the defensive side of the ball. So you win time of possession, ball control, you win the turnover battle. It's not sexy at all, Rami. It's not flashy at all, but it's how this team is designed to win games. And whether Russ can do that, he doesn't have the same mobility as Fields. So when things have broken down, Fields can pick up 5-10 yards at a time and at least move the chains to set things up for Chris Boswell, who's been Mr. Reliable as our kicker. But when it's third down and Russ just checks it down, or it's an incomplete pass and it stops the clock, I expect him to be more decisive with the football than Fields. But Fields, again, I don't look at the statistics as much as I look at what he's been asked to do throughout the process of 6 games this season. And I look at a guy who the knock on Fields coming into this season was, well, he held the ball too long. He has 1 interception in 6 games, which is the second fewest among quarterbacks with at least 1,000 passing yards. And you have to consider that's not bad for a guy who threw 30 interceptions in the past 3 seasons. So he's been protecting the football as well. Why they go to Wilson now? Again, I expect him to play at some point. I look across the division. Joe Burrow has dealt with injuries. Lamar Jackson 2 years ago has dealt with injuries. Deshaun Watson's dealt with injuries, is stinking up the joint in Cleveland. In this division, you're going to need 2 quarterbacks at some point in time. But why right now is going to be just fascinating to watch. The gamesmanship by Tomlin saying, oh, we haven't named a starter, even though a lot of the national reporters saying it's going to be Russ. I expect it to be Russ come Sunday night, but why to make this decision now? Very, very interesting from the Steelers standpoint.
Yeah, and you mentioned what they do. Every Steelers game looks exactly the same when I watch them. It's
Yup.
it's control the time of possession, sometimes convert at the end of it. Sometimes why do I feel like the Steelers have had the ball this entire game and they have 12 points somehow? And they're up 12-6, but they've had the ball the entire game. And it's ugly, it's gross, it's nasty football. And that's kind of similar to the Jets have been in a couple games like that, right? You could say the London game looked like that. The Denver game kind of looked like that. So the Jets have kind of looked a little bit like that. Sunday Night Football, I apologize to the national audience, but it's not going to be a pretty game. I'll tell you that much. The Jets are on a short week.
Let me ask you this from the Jets standpoint. It sounds like you would rather go against Russell Wilson than Fields. Am I reading that wrong?
1000%. Not even close. I mean, Justin Fields adds a dynamic that the Jets cannot stop. With Chuck Clark, who's going to be down at safety for a couple of weeks. Also, now he was just put on IR. Although I saw not Devontae Adams, but Jamal Adams. I think it's the wrong Adams. Jamal Adams was posting pictures of himself in a Jets uniform on his Instagram story yesterday. I don't know if that had anything to do with the Chuck Clark injury. I don't know if his name is Adams, so he's just posting an Adams in a Jets jersey, and I have no idea what that guy's doing ever. But no, thank you, we're good. But if you're going up against Tony Adams and another Adams, but Tony Adams and Ashton Davis as the 2 safeties. And we still are seeing that, Jamian Sherwood is getting most of the starts at middle linebacker over CJ Mosley. And the defensive edge is still being set by Michael Clemens, and Javon Kinlaw is taking all those penalties in the middle. I don't know how much it matters who the quarterback is. Now, the Jets defense has been good, but I don't think it's going to matter that much. They're just going to try and run the ball. And the Jets have been having a hard time stopping the run. When quarterbacks extend plays and make plays off schedule, that's where the Jets have struggled. And so that's the interesting part. That's what Justin Fields does really, really well, right? Is the off schedule stuff, is extending plays, is running around. I saw the Jets play against Russell Wilson last year. It didn't look good when he was in Denver. I saw them play against him 2 years ago. It didn't look good when he was in Denver. So I'm not sure why, if you're the Steelers, you would start Russell Wilson over Justin Fields. It makes no sense. Like you said, if me as a Jet fan is excited to see Russell Wilson start, that's not a good thing for the Steelers.
Not good. In year 13, due to make his first start for Pittsburgh, Fields at 25, you would hope is still progressing. I know he's not a rookie. He's had a lot of starts, but I thought he got a very raw deal in Chicago, and I thought he's made the most of his opportunities.
It's like Sam Darnold with the Jets, right? And all of a sudden he goes to a functional organization with a great OC, good receivers, solid offensive line, and they're 5-0. So Justin Fields, you assume, can take that Sam Darnold step, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was baptism by fire with Fields in Chicago. His very first start against the Cleveland Browns. Got sacked 9 times. Myles Garrett had 4.5 sacks in one game. It was just like, welcome to the league, rookie. And now he's in Pittsburgh. And I thought he's made the most of his opportunity thus far for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Again, we'll see how all of this shakes out. And how the Steelers handled all of this is going to be fascinating, because if Russ struggles at all, at what point do the Steelers fans say, hey, put Fields back on the field? You got to see what you have in both guys. And I'll say this too, Rami. The silver lining for the Steelers is they're paying both Justin Fields and Russell Wilson less than $5 million combined for this season. Both guys only under contract for the 2024 season.
Yeah, and that's the part of it where it's like, hey, let's see what we got in both of these guys, right? Why not? Because at the end of the day, we know what's going to happen with the Steelers. They'll be 9-8 or 10-7, and they'll sneak into a wild card, and then they'll this season is not like a Super Bowl season, I don't think, for the Steelers with their quarterback situation, but they might as well try and see if either one of these guys can be the answer at quarterback for at least the next few years, because the rest of the rosters is pretty solid. It's not great, but it's solid. They have a solid roster, and we know they're going to have a winning record. They probably have the best coach in the league, arguably, at this point. Maybe Andy Reid. There's a couple out there that are maybe better right now, but he's up there, right? So I would say that why not find out? I guess that's the answer. Find out what you have in Russell Wilson. You made that move to go get him. I guess figure out what he's worth.
Yeah, I'm glad you recognize Tomlin's excellence as a coach. I think a lot of times he's the victim of his own success. And despite the lack of playoff success in recent seasons, you got to go
Look at
back
the
to
teams he's
January.
dragged into the playoffs, though.
Yep. Yep. His highest pick was Devin Bush in 2019, and they traded up to get the 10th pick. And then look at his quarterbacks. And you might say, well, isn't that Tomlin's fault? It's like the end of Ben Roethlisberger, Duck Hodges, Mason Rudolph, Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky. Yikes.